Well, good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to the Morning Update Show right here. I'm your host, Trae Holiday, and we are excited to bring you some updates today. As you can see, we are inside our studios, not outside. There's a lot of loud noise happening out there as they are cleaning up the streets. Big O, what are the updates for the day, my friend? How are you?
Man, I'm good. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well.
Fantastic. Good to see you.
You as well, man, always.
Yeah. So actually what's going on outside at the moment, the now updates, we are inside today because they're doing graffiti removal from the streets. And so they have a big scrubbing type truck that's out there right now. They're scrubbing the graffiti, but also removing the painted lines. It's like they're redoing everything over here brand new. And so it's a lot of noise outside, and so we're inside here today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know there's probably a lot unfolding after yesterday's announcements and all that they have to do today in terms of cleanup.
Right. And another thing, we got a lot of tweets this morning like, hey, well, what's going on? Were you guys, allowed entry and all these other kinds of things in here? And yeah, that wasn't a problem. It's still a very secure area, but Sergeant Truscott from Public Information Office talked to her late into the evening, early this morning, about access here, because even for this show, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's about 6 people, you know what I'm saying, for the morning update show, including me and you, maybe 7, including us. Then there's a few other shows that we do here, and then this is just our production location. And so it's taken some coordination. Sometimes it works smoothly over there at on some of these checkpoints. Sometimes not so smoothly, but either way, it's like we're getting in. So I know after all the activity, people were wondering, are we able to enter the space and broadcast? And here we are.
Yeah. I had no problems this morning. I think yesterday was the harder time because there was literally a line of officers right there on every entry point. So it was really hard to get in yesterday. But today, I let them know, hey, I'm with Converge, and they waved me in.
Right. And I think that what we're going to see is, and throughout today's show, we'll talk about it's the time machine, man. You know what I'm saying? Michael J. Fox showed up with the DeLorean. You know what I'm saying? Doc Brown is, this is almost just like 1 month ago, Capitol Hill area where, there's restricted entry, things like that. That's kind of loose during the day, and I think that at night we're going to find, officers out there on the intersections. Because believe it or not, kind of like what we were saying, is that although the CHOP is cleared, the protest season continues. And we saw last night that the night shift, they showed up. The night shift is back. There's a lot of people have been following this story for a while. You guys remember the night shift used to show up on the Western Barricade, and it's a whole different crew. But the night shift showed up last night, although protesters were on Pine and Broadway throughout the day. They stayed active last night. It was almost 3 in the morning, man. I had to get out of here. But I thought that was important because last night was the first night where there wasn't, the first night since the CHOP was cleared, to check the temperature out there. And we saw a lot. We got a clip right here that Joey Weiser, who's a streamer, Capitol Hill resident, also he's an activist up here. He took a clip last night, and quite a few times it got kind of hot and heavy. I think we got a number on the arrest. You got a number on the arrest over there? I think there were some arrests. We'll pull out the numbers here, and we'll tell you throughout the day yesterday. But here's a clip right here from Joey Weiser of some of the activity on Broadway and Pine last night between the police and protesters.
And that's fine, whatever. Okay. Hey.
let him fucking move, huh?
Fucking pussies! 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 All y'all!
And nobody's doing nothing, right? Nobody wants to help.
Get off his neck! Get
Get
off
off
his
his neck!
Get off his
Get off his neck!
Get off his neck! What the hell are you doing? Get off his neck! Get off! Stop! Hey! Shut the fuck up!
Get your fucking
So, I mean, it should be very clear to people. It's throughout our city. People should understand that the chop being cleared out didn't mean that the protest here ended. And actually, I mean, it's weird because it's bringing in more dynamics. Some people that sat on the sideline while the chop was going on and things like that are now, you know, into the streets. People who were into the streets before are now back into the streets. And when we look at that footage right there, it, like I said, it's in the time machine. You know what I'm saying? We're going back like almost a month ago to the days of the Western Barricade. Except, you know, last night there was no clear demarcation. There was a sidewalk, a painted strip on the sidewalk, and you know that because there was some paint on the street. I mean, it was a lot of movement and tactics and everything else back and forth. You know, SPD. Well, and yet last night, actually, let me tell you this. The police and the protesters both were testing each other's tactics. You know what I'm saying? Maybe intentionally or unintentionally, right? And so, you know, SPD tried some tactics there in what we saw as a de-escalation tactic. They moved back almost, 70, 80 feet from the protesters. The protesters had tried a tactic of now that this footprint, people don't understand, this footprint is very big. And it takes a lot of officers to be on guard in the evening throughout, because you have the residential streets, you have Cal Anderson Park, and on every street and every main entrance into what is dubbed here the Cal Anderson Park area, there's officers that are lined in there. So you had some protesters that stayed there at literally at the new Western Barricade, while other ones made the rounds all the way around. And you know, there's some officers that have special tactics, which would be flashbang, flashbang launcher. We saw some of those last night and things like that. A rubber bullet gun, you know what I'm saying? There's not somebody who's posted at every single street with one of those. So there's some officers you see, they were on their hustle horse as the protesters moved around last night around this Cal Anderson Park area. So, you know, it's a transference of energy. And also it's kind of crazy because I talked to one of the residents, and actually we have Justin Carter from the Capitol Hill Seattle blog who's coming up next. For some of the people who live here in the area, they're like, well, 34, 35, however many days ago, at first the police had blocked access because of the Western Barricade protests, and they had those limited access. They couldn't drive in. They had to have an escort and all these kind of things. Then Chaz and Chop, you know what I'm saying? It was limited access, Chop security, you know what I'm saying, there and everything else. They couldn't drive freely as they wanted to. Now it's back in the hands of the Seattle police, and it's an even bigger footprint, and people can't move freely through the neighborhood right now, you know what I'm saying? So if you've actually lived here and especially lived within these last few blocks, I mean, the real estate has changed hands, but a lot of the things as far as access and everything else is much different, or is very much the same. Now, of course, what's going on inside of here is different. You know, there's no more chop. The streets are quiet, very quiet here. And be honest with you, our studio right now might be in the safest area of Seattle, because it's law enforcement all around us in the perimeter. But it's like the more things change, in a sense, the more they stay the same. The protesters are still in the street, you know, and as we saw last night, you know, the interactions are there. The mace is back there. I'm back carrying my mask again. So I've gone from, you know, I went from mask and goggles to bulletproof vest, now back to mask and goggles. So, you know, I mean, things changing. They're staying the same out here in protest season.
Well, right. And you said it too. Even during CHOP, as it was live and well, you would see the temperature change throughout the day. I mean, it's something that we reported on all throughout that time, and how there would be, you know, some people that came during the day, and then it was definitely a different scene at night. Looks like we're seeing the same thing here, because even just yesterday, there were protesters, as you said, down there on Broadway. And so it's not as if, again, it's not as if clearing out the CHOP or maybe taking away the mutual aid and these tents that were in Count Anderson Park is the end of this story. Clearly, there's still civil unrest, and people still want to get out here and express themselves.
It's just the next chapter in this, you know, in this saga. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we have Justin Carter, who is the publisher of the Capitol Hill Seattle blog. He's going to talk about some additional analysis up here, but also we have some clips where we interviewed people, you know, who are actually protesting, the people who are on the street, and we had some of their thoughts from what's coming out of City Hall. You are watching the Morning Update Show. Hey, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury, joined here by Justin Carter, publisher, Capitol Hill Seattle blog. Man, well, we've been talking about you joining us here for a minute, and even yesterday, I think yesterday morning you're supposed to be here, and then it was, you know, all the police activity and everything else. How are you? Oh, man, well, I think we all have, to be honest with you. Man, tell us, like, what are some of your thoughts of what you've seen? And, you know, one of the things we want to have you on here is because, you know, you really represent and kind of write to the Capitol Hill, the people of Capitol Hill. You have a lot of overlap in your writing there that covers the Central District as well. So I always appreciate that, because a lot of our concerns in the Central District are carried by the Capitol Hill Seattle blog. But tell us, man, like, what are you seeing here in this dynamic 24 hours between the CHOP being cleared out all the way through protesters last night, everything else?
Sure. I mean, I cover the neighborhood, and now the neighborhood has this new area that was the protest zone, and I don't know, Capitol Hill Police Zone now. It's you talked about Back to the Future. Remember Lost? You ever watch that show? Stuff didn't go like always backwards. Sometimes it went sideways. It felt like last night things started to go sideways. So we're starting to see like similar things, but there's a twist. It's flopped direction. nationally. It's on the west side now. There are fewer protesters, but maybe just as passionate. Neighbors and residents and businesses are as concerned as ever.
Right. Yeah, you said, hold on, now it's the Capitol Hill police zone. No, I'm just saying. I mean, well, you know, it's the Arts District. People maybe not from Seattle don't realize, man, these guys waste no time up here on Capitol Hill on anything, whether it's putting art, coining something, everything else. And I think even that's how, like, Chaz initially took off. Like, bro, let's just do an autonomous zone. Sounds good. And then all of a sudden it's the Chaz. Right, and so speaking more to that, what are some of the residents saying about the footprint that is here? There's 8 or 9 days left in the mayor's order around Capitol Hill if they decide to use all the remainder of it. But what are some of the residents saying now about the new setup here?
There's a mix. There are definitely people who miss CHOP and have alliances and respect for everything that's going on there and are very upset about the police being in. At the same time, when I was walking in, I watched a woman drive up to the line and thank the police profusely for being there. So you've got different types of people coming out and checking out the lines, talking with police. Before, people used to be supportive of CHOP, but they were different than the woman that drove up today in a minivan. So I do think you're seeing that the neighborhood has a lot of different kind of people. But in general, everybody got woke up last night around 3 a.m. for fireworks.
Yeah, you heard that. You know, one of the things that's crazy, I never thought of it as like a big deal. I was just like, oh, reporting fireworks. But so on Twitter, I'll put fireworks. And man, I get so many thank you.
You're taking over my job. That used to be my job. Now, can you take over the helicopters now?
Here's what we'll do, man. I mean, I'm anxious to get back to the Central District, you know what I'm saying? And on the storyline there. So what I want to talk to you about is we saw the mayor, we saw Chief Best, a lot of the agency heads and everybody else come out at the press conference. They had a lot to say. How do you think whatever the mayor was saying and Chief Best was saying actually percolates down here to the street level? Because one thing that we have seen here, one thing that we have seen here is we've seen that the protesters themselves in the street, you know, they're not always the messaging. Sorry, it's a lot going on behind the scenes here, and we just never know because it's basically what I'm saying is that the messaging coming out of City Hall, even before even before things that got violent here, we'd go and we'd say, hey, did you see the mayor today? Did you see the chief of police today? And most of the protesters would be like, no. You know what I'm saying? Or and that's why I wrote a blog post even a few weeks ago. I was like, man, the protesters, if they're going to be protesters, they got to like bone up. You can't be an ignorant protester. You just, you know what I'm saying? But what I'm finding is that no matter what's coming out of City Hall, one, either these guys are not paying attention to it, or two, they're like, they don't believe it.
Sure. I mean, some people never click the headlines, so there's no helping them. But, you know, the mayor clearly scored points yesterday. You had, like, the White House even talking about the liberation of Seattle. But her message, if there's a key failing, clearly did not get down to the street. There was nothing in that about any specifics about what changes she's going to make now that this big sweep has happened. It was a lot of things she's been talking about all along, and I don't think those are going to change any minds.
Right. And so we have a clip here. This is, and I asked people, so, I mean, this is the thing, and this is why we're on the ground, is to ask the people. I think the City Hall, they have their conduit or however their system is. And, you know, City Hall is asking third parties to now ask the protesters and everything else. You know me, I just go ask them. I'm like, hey, what are you thinking? So the first clip that we have here is somebody that people have seen on the stream for a while. His name is TD. And TD said that until he sees something in writing from City Hall, that he doesn't really respect what they're saying there. Can we play this clip right here from TD? Hey, did you see the mayor's press conference today? All right, well, the mayor said that basically they want to invest in black communities. She's open to looking at defund. They want to put a space here in Capitol Hill for Black voices. I didn't see him give a plan like PDF download. Those what it came out of her mouth though.
That doesn't surprise me. You were at the meeting. We both were at the meeting last Friday. She says things, doesn't do them. We need to document it. We need to put it in paper.
So
whatever she says, I can't take into account because I can't believe.
So but you didn't see the press conference today. But if you did, I'm paraphrasing with the items that I brought up today. Would that have changed your mind of being here tonight?
If it was in writing, that may have done something. But whatever. Should the city, should Mayor Durkin actually create a PDF download of her plan? If she really is serious about doing something, then why don't you write a proposal? You can have the cameras on. I mean, you know that you're media. You can come out and have the cameras on and say whatever you want. But when the lights are turned off, what's really happening?
All right. Thanks, TD.
Thank you.
So that's TD, and basically what he said is that, you know, the mayor needs to put her plan out on paper. He said he wants a downloadable PDF.
I'll repeat what I said. I've got a new mic now, so hopefully everything's more clear. I won't add to any more of the mysteries around who the hell Jay Seattle is. So as far as stuff in writing, though, like, I read the thing. I don't think that's going to help many people. There's nothing in it except for some things for businesses, and there is some language around her desire to make sure that people arrested on misdemeanors don't get charged. But there's nothing in there that's specific to any of the major goals. And so as far as translating down to the folks that are going to come out and march and be in the streets, it doesn't matter if you read the PDF.
Right. And, you know, what we've been saying and what we've been encouraging City Hall to do, one, because, you know, as media, we want to know, like, what's in there, is then they got to put some meat on the bones, you know. And I think that even with Chief Best came out and said, man, when she came out with her initial plan, it was kind of bullet pointed there on the SPD blotter. And with that, I think that the next round of that would be show that she's actually making steps towards it, is that if you got Michael Solon, who's the president of the SPOG, to sign off on that, and if you had city council, and then the people know that there's actually stakeholder buy-in from within the city, and then you go into the citizens. But it's a first step for the chief, but I think that it's a lot of more steps to take. And the same thing with City Hall. If these plans they're making that they're putting out there, unless they can put some meat on the bones, then people are like,
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what their strategy really is. I think mostly there's a lot of political maneuverings around next week's budget committee meeting, which will go into depth on the Seattle Police Department's cuts because of the COVID-19 crisis. That is probably a more clear strategy for the mayor and for Carmen Best even right now than actually meeting any of the demands for the people that are marching.
Right. And so another clip right here. This one was interesting. This is Caleb, who's been out here, a protester, and they say, you know, it's crazy because we get some people like, oh man, you guys show the protester space, and but people don't understand. Out here on the ground, like, people want to come talk to us. People want to tell us their story. They want to know, you know, they want to tell us why they're here and everything else. Caleb is somebody, additionally, who people have seen on the streams for the last few weeks, and he was somebody who was tinted. He was up there, you know, living in the East Precinct, and we wanted to really talk to people who were protesting at 2 o'clock in the morning. We didn't want to talk to people who were here or there or anything else, you know what I'm saying? We want to talk to the actual people who were beating the drums and all that stuff as they moved through the neighborhood. So again, we asked Caleb right here, like, had he heard, did he see the mayor's press conference? Turns out he was in jail at the time. He got swept up over here. But, you know, this was his thoughts about, you know, what they're saying at City Hall. Did you see the mayor's press conference, or you were in jail earlier?
I was in jail, but we were watching some of it, and it was complete, I don't want to swear, it was bull crap. It was bull crap. I was surprised to see that her, as well as Chief Best, believed that there would be no imminent protest after they took back the CHOP area. CHOP's not a place, it's an idea, again, so why are they surprised that we're here right now? They just gave the order that in 5 minutes, everybody here who they catch will be arrested. That's the same exact command that they gave up at the CHOP this morning at 5 o'clock. So we'll see what happens.
Is there anything that the mayor, City Hall, can say
that get you off the street, say tonight. They got you on the line. It's like, Caleb, what?
Meet our demands.
Do you plan to?
Don't be petty because they marched to your house. That's the only reason why she cleared out shop. That's the only reason why they're doing this right now. Is because she's mad that we brought the fight to her house.
Right. Do you plan to be out here?
We brought the fight. Actually, Kashana, I believe, brought the fight to her house. Tax, Amazon, right?
Do you plan to be out here Are you coming back tomorrow?
Hey, I've been here 24/7, almost every single day. The only days I didn't is days that I haven't worked because I got to make money, and my paycheck is supplying a lot of people here. So I'm here 24/7. I plan on being here all night, all day tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. I'm excited for 4th of July. I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
All right, thank you.
Right. And this is Caleb, who was living in the tented area, not the unhoused, the homeless, but tented right there in front of the East Precinct. That's where he was at. Got swept up yesterday, went to jail, bailed out, back out here on the street, and he's saying every day until their demands are met.
Well, bad news for Caleb is that the mayor is never going to say those words. But the process might eventually deliver some of those demands.
All right. So what are some of your thoughts of moving forward? What's this going to look like here for Capitol Hill? Is Capitol Hill's problem going to move down and become South Lake Union's problem, or is it going to, you know what I'm saying? What do you see on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to predict this kind of thing, but there's a real gravity to the East Precinct. I mean, things just come back here. There's history. It's just logistically convenient. There's, light rail. So stuff like that adds up probably to this remaining a center just because of what has already happened here. That being said, it's pretty clear that there's been some power in moving this to things like the mayor's house and also moving down the West Precinct sometimes. And so those strategies may come into play, but I expect to see more activity here for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, what I saw, and that's why I waited till very late last night, because, the night shift actually determines a lot around the protest. You get the day shift out there, and, I mean, even though it got kind of heated yesterday during the day, but if there's no night shift, there's really no kind of, sustained protest. We'll see what else happens here tonight as well. But they had a good amount of momentum there. 2 a.m., it was a good amount of people out there.
And in the past, we've seen weekends actually be a factor. People work and people have lives. And we also have the 4th of July coming up, and there's all sorts of talk around Patriots and those kinds of things. So, I mean, the weekend is going to be pretty interesting.
All right, fantastic. Before we let you get out of here, why don't you tell people how they can follow you, how they can follow the Capitol Hill Seattle blog, all that good stuff.
Sure. So I'm on Twitter at jseattle, JSEATTLE, and we publish everything every day, 24/7 sometimes at CapitolHillSeattle.com.
CapitolHillSeattle.com.
Thank you.
If you got people like, man, Omari, you're out here working hard, this and that. There's just a spotlight on me right now. This guy right here, the commitment that the Capitol Hill Seattle blog has had, not only to Capitol Hill, but to other neighborhoods and even reporting on the city. And, I mean, it's crazy because when we started our blog, and our blog we don't write as much, because we're more video. But that's who we want to pattern after. It was like, man, we gotta be like these guys.
See, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without you, man. So it's a good matchup.
Fantastic. All right, Justin Carter from the Capitol Hill Seattle blog. We're gonna take a short break right now. When I come back, or when we come, it'll be then, because Trayana's joining me again. Where we're gonna I think we have some more clips. And we're also going to talk about, like I said, it's the time machine. So we're going to talk to people again about what it looks like when a body camera is on and off. We did this a month ago. What's the tape across the badge? What's that mean? Because, if we're doing it again, but I'm saying we need to put information out there. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Well, welcome back to the Morning Update Show right here on Converge Media. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. And that was Justin with the
Capitol Hill Seattle
Thank
blog.
you. Capitol Hill Seattle blog. Oh, I know we have some more updates to give throughout the show. There were some other clips that you guys got also yesterday that we want to go over with the audience.
Right. Well, before that, so, this is, like I said, a month ago almost when the Western Barricade was here, we'd hear different things from the protesters, and then we would just, kind of do our job and check in with the city, or we would check in with the police department to see, what the story was. And two things that we heard big last night was that the blinking light from the body cam meant that the battery was low. And so, you hear it on the stream. It's like, man, it's on low battery. Look, it's blinking. It's on low battery. So we reached out to the Seattle Police Department this morning, to the public information officer, Sergeant Truscott. And, what she said is that the blinking light there actually indicates that the body camera is recording. So that's what SPD is saying. And so, man, it's constant myth busting all over the place, on all sides of this issue here. But that's what the Seattle Police Department is saying, is that when the red light is blinking on the camera, that the camera is recording. So actually, I guess people would be looking for a camera not blinking or something like that. Now, last night, other people were like, well, hey, this person has a camera, doesn't have a camera. I don't know. You got to take that up with SPD. But what we were able to follow up on was what they're saying is the blinking light on the camera means that the camera is recording. The other thing, I think Daryl has a clip here of this, is the morning band or the tape across the badge. And so this has been, when you talk to the Seattle Police Department or police departments across the country, the tape across the badge is a sign of respect or mourning for officer that have passed away. And because of COVID now, like a lot of the bands just stay on there because people can't go to funerals and everything else. That's what I'm hearing from SPD. Now, we covered this again. This was things we went over at the beginning of the Western Barricade, because we wanted to reach out to the police. We always just want to get the scoop directly from the source. We talk to the people, we talk to the police, talk to the politicians. So what they're saying is that, there's a few different badges that the Seattle Police Department has, and there's one that's a standard issue, and then there's a few that the officers can actually pay money for, and those are the metal badges. And the metal badges, usually the numbers are there on the bottom, and so they're visible with the tape. The standard ones, the numbers are in the middle. Some of them are in the middle, and so the directive from the chief, my understanding is that if they have a standard badge, then they have to be able to place the tape where the badge number is visible. So I say that because what we do see a lot of times is you'll see officers there, even with a metal badge, then the tape's across, and people try to grab us and be like, see, look, they got the because they see the tape, they're not looking further at the badge to see the badge number. Now, am I saying that all the police have their badge numbers, shown and everything else? One, that'd be impossible for me to say. Two, we've seen certain times here, depending upon the tactical gear that the officers are wearing as well. Like if they're just in their dress blues, or if they're in the body armor, or if they're in the vest and everything else, we've seen different variations around badges and ID. But to the point of the tape across the badge, and also people could go to SPD Blotter. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, man, an informed protester is if people are going to be out here protesting, let's just be informed about everything that's out there as much as possible. Yeah. We want to be able to do our part, and that's why we ask protesters, what do you want from, the city or however. We ask them directly. We ask the police directly. We'd love to get some of our elected officials on the show so we could actually ask them directly about quite a few things.
Yeah, that would be great. And I think that, that's one of the things that Converge has really been doing really well during this time in terms of just informing people, man, just getting the information out there. Something as simple as the tape on a badge and the difference between the badges that they can buy and the badges that are standard issue. That is really, vital information out here, especially when, something is as simple as that can cause a large misunderstanding. And as we've seen, we just saw it with Joey Weiser's footage, just from last night. But as we've seen, it gets funky very quickly.
And last night I reserved by these now famous things of it's getting funky out here and share the stream. It wasn't. Maybe we've seen too much out here. It wasn't elevated to those levels last night. Mm-hmm. But one thing that we actually probably want to sit with SPD on, because there's a lot of intricacies around it and also a lot of questions. So I'll see if we can get somebody actually from the police department to explain their policy here, and for the policymakers downtown, is the use of tear gas, the use of flashbang devices, rubber bullets, and everything else. Because like on the street level, you hear that all of those things are banned. But on the practical level, like I said last night, you saw a mace, you saw some kind of flashbang device. It's a new kind of device. It wasn't the kind that before that they would just be rolled and everything else. And one of the things that we saw with SPD is before with the protesters, they had no problem putting those flashbang grenades right in front of people. But we saw last night that they used some kind of projectile shooter that actually they were shooting the flashbangs in the areas that were unoccupied. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But these flashbangs, the flashbangs before had smoke in them, but these flashbangs had some kind of pepper spray. This is what I'm saying is like day one, man. The protesters are testing the police tactics. The police are testing the protester tactics. But in speaking with SPD this morning, they said that all those things are allowed. They said that, the two things we talked about, I didn't talk about rubber bullets, slipped my mind, but we talked about pepper spray and we talked about flashbangs. And SPD was saying that it is allowed, and even the CS gas, the tear gas is allowed, but the order has to come directly from Chief Best. So you can see that there's a big disconnect, as far as what the police are saying is allowed and what the streets are saying, their understanding of what's allowed. And so we want to work today to kind of bridge that gap. At least somebody can, will come on if we can get them on, or at least can be able to break it down, because that alone is going to cause a big issue, you know what I'm saying, where you have people who are like, all of those things are banned, and then you have the police saying, well, they're not banned. And so we want to be able to work to be able to bring, do our job, bring the information out there.
And bring balance, because I think that causes a lot of confusion. Even me just watching that footage from Joey, literally I'm thinking to myself, is there nothing else they can do? Is that all they have? That they need to spray people, that they need to do the flashbangs? My thing is I wonder sometimes if there are other tactics, right? And, strong arm, I'm just thinking about that. Like in my mind, I thought, whoa, they're already using those measures. And then he had the knee on the neck of the bicycler. It's just, so many things that we see that what you said, the time machine, it was like going back in time, looking at some of that footage.
Right. And the flip side of it is I had to write this down phonetically. But the flip side of it is, and going back in that time machine, is you got people like Sergeant Gohagan. I used to always kill his name on the stream before. I'd be like Goganis or go whatever. Sergeant Gohagan, who apparently is out of the South Precinct. And this guy just has a very good skill at being able to read the crowd and redirect and move officers forward or backwards or things like that. And we saw that SPD took some steps as far as, at least by the time we were there. By the time I left, SPD had actually decided to move back. They moved back like 70, 80 feet. It was a big gap in between, where previously, a month ago, SPD might have pushed people out and forward. So, there's all kinds of different tactics that we're seeing here. And that was one of the things, like I said, on the stream last night, we saw they kept commanding four steps back, hold the line, 4 steps back, hold the line. And creating that distance there as well was something that you see on a kind of a de-escalation side, or at least that's what I perceived it was, last night. Of course, the protesters were like, nah, we saw this in London. You know what I'm saying? The bikes are going to come and this, and from the police side, I would be interested. I doubt we'll get that access of what they're thinking, like, oh, okay, well, now these guys are over here or there. But now that they're testing each other's tactics, now that people know that guys are going to residential streets, you know, we'll see what happens. Yeah. We wanted to get a varying group of people yesterday who, from people who actually were sleeping at the East Precinct, which is Caleb. Then we also talked to TK, who doesn't live in the Capitol Hill area but comes here every day for the marches and everything else, and leads a lot of the marches down to the West Precinct. And also, again, to Joey Weiser, who's a resident who lives in here, to be able to give people a broad perspective of how people feel about this from protester side, right? So Caleb's a protester, TK's a protester, Joey Weiser's a protester. The first clip right here, caught up with TK yesterday on Broadway. Is TK? Yeah? No? Okay, well, we can go to Joey. Let's go with whatever order you got, Chief. But, you know, when you get the big eyes, I'm like, what's going on? Who we got? Okay, so here's Joey Weiser. A lot of people might know him. He's he's like a social media expert. Works with a lot of big brands here in Seattle. Capitol Hill resident. He considers himself an activist and part of Black Lives Matters movement and everything else. And you know, we asked him, like, okay, well, you know, it's post CHOP. What's next? Go ahead with that clip, Daryl. So here with live streamer, but I think he would say most importantly for your description for you as an activist out here who happens to also live stream and a Capitol Hill resident. So Joey Weiser, just getting viewpoints. So I talked to TK, who didn't stay here, but you know, this was a rallying point. I talked to Caleb, who was actually in a tent living over there at the East Precinct, and now talking to you as a resident. What are your thoughts on basically today's actions and the CHOP being swept out? And then also, what do you think what's next for all this?
I think one of the things we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years is that anything the Trump administration and his affiliates touch or are against, we automatically are forced in a way to be in support of. And what we saw today in direct response to this action that happened here from Mayor Durkan's executive order was that Trump and the Attorney General are ecstatic. They're saying liberation has been achieved in Seattle. They're praising the actions of Chief Best and basically saying that this lawlessness, this anarchy, this rampant sort of violence in the street has now been taken care of. And I think that puts the mayor and the police chief in an awkward position, or at least it should. And I hope that it galvanizes the support of everybody here in this community and beyond to say that, yes, this area had its problems, yes, but putting international attention on an area and calling for patriots to come in and save Seattle, I mean, that's naturally going to make us targets for all kinds of violence and problems, you know? And so I hope that people can see this for what it was, as an idea and as an opportunity to refocus our efforts on how we can get rid of white supremacy in our daily lives, whether that be in policing or in the education system, in the judicial system, and in every aspect of our lives. So I hope that folks come out, they continue to come out and go to the 7:30 p.m. Black Femme-led march. I hope we continue to shut down highways. I hope we continue to disrupt, because our work is far from over. And whether or not it happens here, or happens in the Central District, or happens in the South End, or anywhere else, it needs to keep happening.
All right, so you see this, Joey Weiser right there, you know what I'm saying, gainfully employed, working with some of the biggest brands, you know, here in this part of America, Capitol Hill resident, you know, lives in the neighborhood, protester every day, right? So we want to be able to bring different varying, you know, viewpoints to people. So now we've got TK, who's up here next, and TK was actually just she got arrested like a few days ago. It was a big deal. Everybody was down there at the jail. I believe Councilmember Sawant went to the bail hearing down there and everything else. And TK is somebody who's been leading a lot of the marches that go downtown. You know, she's one of those everyday people here, every day. And so we caught up with TK yesterday to see what her thoughts were with the CHOP sweep out and what that meant to protesting here in Seattle. So we're getting a lot of perspectives
The mayor, the police chief had their press conference yesterday. So we heard from the city and from Human Service. Come forward, just one step right here.
Yeah.
And
I'm listening. To the right.
no, so it's fine. I'll just start again.
Okay, now you got
and
it.
so,
You got it.
clearly the chop
Now,
got pulled out yesterday,
watch out,
but you weren't
okay.
one of the people
Hold
who
on.
was tinted here anyway.
No.
This was the
Keep
chop
going,
was
guys.
kind of a
Keep
place
going.
where your marches started
Okay, you
and
got
things
it.
like that.
Yeah.
But we heard from the mayor
Watch
and we
out,
heard
though,
from the
'cause-
police
okay,
chief
you're good.
yesterday and a lot of other people. As a
Go straight back out.
protester,
Straight,
not even an occupier,
straight,
like you said, of the
straight,
group that was living in the
straight,
tents,
yeah,
but as a
straight,
protester, and I
straight,
guess at this point,
straight,
somewhat of an
turn the
activist
wheel
out
to
here.
your right.
You continue. What's your position now, as with the chop being swept out? What's the position, or what are a lot of protesters thinking?
Every day. They don't change nothing, because the real work was in the streets anyways. It just brought those people back out their houses and off their asses and back into the streets. You know what I'm saying? Because now everybody knows why we were still here. Oh, now that everybody's been, the cozy and the comfortable and the Coachella's been uprooted now, everybody remembers why they're here now. Now it's back to the cause. Now everybody wants to be about the cause again. But I've been about the cause since day one. The people I surround myself with, the people that march with us, been about the cause since day one. That's why we still been in the streets every day.
Right, and now just one last question. Do you feel then like the energy, we've been talking about like how the energy from the protests, when the barricade was up, it moved to the Chaz and to the chop, and now that even though the location has changed, that the energy is now transferring back to the streets?
Yeah, it is. It's proof. There's proof. There's proof that the energy's going back to the streets. That's the proof. That's way more people that's normally out here trying to protest or be an activist or whatever the case may be. Now it's proof.
And you plan to continue your daily marches?
Every day, all day, till they get the picture. We ain't stopping till no justice, no peace, till the people get the justice we seek. Simple as that. You know, they ain't got no choices. Either they're gonna do it or we're gonna make them do it. We're gonna put them in corners and make them do it.
Right, and so right there, like you hear from TK, and you know, so hearing from somebody who was living in the barricade at the East Precinct, went to jail yesterday, got back out and protesting again. That's Caleb. Joey Weiser, you know what I'm saying, who lives in the neighborhood, who's a resident. You know, he was there covering, but he's part as a streamer. But, I mean, he's part of the protest. Then somebody like TK, you know what I'm saying, who comes on site every day to be able to lead marches. And I just thought that it was important for the public to get a distinction because, you know, a lot of times if you just look at other news, then a protester is categorized as one type of person or individual. And the reason why, you know, we're going deeper in this is because I think people in the city of Seattle, you know, our primary concern on this issue, want to have more of an understanding, like, why are these people here? What do they want and everything else? But you see, like, you know, three different kind of intersections there right around the same thing, which is the Seattle protest.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, ending with TK in that way and in that fashion, I mean, what she's talking about is really, you know, what I keep uplifting here is what is the reason that people got out in the streets in the first place, right? And yes, the chop zone had this feel, but people were brought out because of injustice and inequality, and people want equity. And so, you know, just shout out to those who are like, nah, we're not there yet. You know, we can't stop this movement. We can't stop this momentum just because they want to clear the streets. You know, it sounds like TK is a die-harder. When you talk about everydayer, you know, there's a whole group of folks who will be doing this on the everyday basis. Oh, and that's very clear.
Right. And so City of Seattle, a few people that we want to follow up with. So I'm going to reach out to the public information officer and see how, you know, because like I said, what SPD is saying the rules are, and clearly what people understand the rule, what the rules are on the street, there is a gap, you know, as far as, you know, projectiles, as far as pepper spray, flashbangs, and everything else. So my homework for today is to be able to talk to SPD and figure out the language, you know what I'm saying, is how all of that works. The other thing is Human Services, man. You know what I'm saying? I reached out to Will Lemke yesterday over at Human Services. I reached out to Jay Johnson. Didn't hear back from either of them. Man, it's a lot of questions over here regarding what occurred with the homeless and the unhoused population, because the mayor in her order Item number 6 was very clear that, tents were supposed to be packed up. People's personal items were supposed to be gathered and stored and X, Y, and Z. And that's not really what the footage showed yesterday. And so, we want to be able to talk. And I'm not talking about the CHOP, the area there at the East Precinct, talking about the grassy area where the homeless people were at, and basically the most marginalized population that was out here. And I'm assuming that item number 6 or point number 6 in the mayor's emergency order, that's primarily who that was geared towards. The footage we're getting a lot of complaints that people are telling us around here how item number 6, and it'd be great if the mayor's office could reach out to us. Point number 6 in the mayor's order, how was that upheld? You know what I'm saying? Like, she didn't have to put it there, but she did put it there. And because she put it there, then, we're getting a lot of feedback as to, was that, did those things occur that the mayor clearly said in the order? Nobody forced her to put it there. She put it there. Hey, did it happen the way it was supposed to? So I want to talk to Seattle Police today, Human Services, and then I guess follow back up with the mayor's office as well to see, up to what spirit of whatever it was the expectation that point number 6 in her executive order would be lived up to.
Well, yeah, and I also think too, we covered this weeks before the protests happened as they were clearing the homeless encampments down there in Chinatown ID. Yeah, exactly. We covered that, and literally, again, that was a lot of uprising from the community as well. As they went in, we had the story from the business owners who wanted the area cleaned up. But they just went in there with dumpsters, man, and threw away all of those people's belongings, their tents, anything that was inside. If anybody didn't actually get out before they did the sweep, their stuff was in the dumpster. So, I think her putting that order in there was a lot of community concern with how the unhoused and homeless were being treated. And I think that continues on right here in this area as well.
Right. If the mayor's office has any statement about that, you know what I'm saying, we're very open to receive it. We're open for somebody to come on here and talk about it and everything. We want to get as many people talking as possible.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So whether you're at City Hall, whether you're a resident here, whether you're a protester, I think that the people of the Emerald City can benefit from, learning more about people in these positions, whether it's elected official, whether it's protester, resident, a policymaker, or anything else.
Yeah.
We're going to get ready to get out of here today. We've got a programming note. We got Good Game Alert with Willard Jimerson Jr. He's got quite a few guests. You know who the guests are on there today? That's what I thought. I wanted to confirm it. So Willard's got Nikita Oliver on there today or tonight. A few other people as well. So Good Game Alert in the 7 o'clock hour. Right now it's tight to get in here, so it's difficult to give an exact time, but we do know it's going to start in the 7 o'clock hour. I think they're saying right now they might be saying 7:30, but we'll make sure and update everybody. So that's Good Game Alert with Willard Jimerson Jr., and his guest is going to be Nikita Oliver of the People's Party. We're going to do our continuing coverage throughout the day, as usual, and update the public. Any last words for you?
No, I know we'll be at Lorenzo's Memorials also today. Donita's family will be doing that. I know Def Chef will be cooking for that. So community will be gathering to honor Lorenzo's life.
Wow. Man, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? All right. Well, before we go, I definitely want to thank everybody. We get a lot of overwhelming support. I want to thank everybody who came to our rescue yesterday too. You know what I'm saying? We put a tweet out there kind of saying what our position or situation was here, and a lot of people kind of stepped up all over the Twitter sphere and all other kinds of peers. And it was the issue was quickly resolved. Not only for myself, the best thing is that yesterday, me, Omari, Converge was being excluded, but because of, everybody else had already been excluded, but I was, being excluded. The last one left, me and Matt from Como. But I think putting out that tweet and everything else, because of that, all media was included. And that's the best thing is it's like, man, thank you for trusting our lens and our voice, but as many cameras and as many, writers and reporters can actually, tell the story from how they see it. It's important.
Yeah. And
transparency around the process here is very important, and it's deserved, to the city, the people of the city of Seattle. And it's important that, we're actually seeing this process unfold. If this is that moment in Seattle's history that we're saying that things are going to change forever. Things take a stand.
Time to do that.
All right. So we're going to get out of here and back tomorrow, 11 a.m.
That's right. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Peace.
Peace.
Every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.